What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be yanking the engine out of this here vehicle.
This beautiful vehicle.
This beautiful vehicle. So today is the day, like I said, we're going to yank the engine out of Cherry, and that's because we're going to be slapping a torque storm on it. In order for me to do that, I need to go through this stock 5.0 and make it boost able. So let's look at what we got right now.
Oh,
Here she is. You guys have seen it earlier. Just a good old stock 302. And it should be relatively easy to get out of here. I don't know. I've never actually pulled an engine out of a factory Mustang. So I know, I mean, obviously it's easy on the blue car, but this has got a lot more factory equipment that's going to be hindering my ability to do the yanking. But no biggie, because we ain't going to be using very much of that stuff. So a lot of the stuff is probably just going to end up getting cut, to be honest with you, just to save time. But we're going to yank this thing out of here, go through it. I'll show you guys that whole deal. The kind of tentative schedule for this engine is we're going to pull it out. I'll go through it. That will be one video. Next video we're going to we'll do the buildup and then the install. So big projects happening all the time here, and we can go ahead and get started on this thing, I think. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Ready?
Ready?
You filming?
Yeah.
Okay, are you filming?
Just keep asking.
Sorry, are we good? All right, so we have got the engine now almost ready to pull out. So we just got a couple of things I gotta take off down below here, and I think for the most part we're gonna be ready to take this engine out. Now, I've never taken the engine out of a stock Mustang before. All my engine in and out experience is just on race cars. So we're probably going to be testing the tensile strength of whatever I happen to leave plugged in, but it's not a big deal because, like I said earlier, most of the factory stuff is just going to get replaced anyways. So I think it's time to bring the forklift over here and then start working on bell housing bolts and motor mount bolts. All right, so as I'm down here removing our battery, power, and ground from the bottom side of this very leaky front main seal, apparently, or oil pan gasket, I don't know. This thing is so nasty greasy. I cannot wait to get all this crap out of here so I can just hit it with that Dawn dish soap and some power wash and loving and get this thing clean again. This is so nasty down here, dude. I mean, I knew it had some leaks going on, but the power steering fluid leak combined with the front main seal and the rear main seal leak has made this engine very dirty. I'm not used to working on like real stock cars like this. Most of the time, everything I'm working on is race cars that are like, if you have this much dirt coming off on your hands on a race car, you need to take better care of your race car. But that's really the only struggle I'm going through right now. But just gotta take the rest of this wiring off of here, and then we can get to our motor mount bolts, our bell housing bolts, and we should be ready to go.
You ready?
We're ready.
Everything disconnected, ready to go?
I guess this will be attempt number one. I'm about 85% sure that everything's disconnected. 85% I think is good enough to at least try.
That's a passing grade for sure, right?
That's a B.
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 That's all right.
And we're gonna have to touch the front. Good. Not bad.
I think only an hour today.
We clear?
Bam.
It is out. Pretty cool, man. And I was just actually making a comment to Nate because I actually don't have hardly any time into this pulling the engine out. I was actually pleasantly surprised how easy these engines are to pull out of the car.
Said what? Like just over 2 hours?
I spent an hour on it yesterday, like an hour and a half today. So it's like 2.5 hours, not 3 hours, less than 3 hours from drove it into the shop to taking the engine out. So I can't complain about that. That's pretty good. I mean, it takes the same amount of time to take the engine in and out of the blue car. Yeah, we got the engine out. Now it's time to put it on a stand and see what we're working with. Oh yeah.
It's got some heat in it. Not much left on it.
No, I think this one is about done for. That's all right. We expected that. No biggie. This thing needs a upgraded clutch anyways, because the factory clutch is really only good for like 300 or so. Definitely a new flywheel. I wouldn't reuse this flywheel on a new clutch. Pilot bearing looks good. Let's take this flywheel off and then we can put it on the stand. All right, she's on the stand. I've got our flywheel and our clutch out. And now what we can do, since it's the end of the day today, we'll come back tomorrow and then we can start tearing into this thing and seeing what all damage is here, if any. And we can start working on the base for our Torque Storm supercharged drift engine. Super happy to be working on this thing and getting this engine around and ready, so that we can go thrash on it here this season and just beat the crap out of it. That's the goal, at least. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, so we have got our, as far as I know, bone stock 1995 Mustang GT engine. Now, this engine is a complete mystery to me. I have no idea if anybody's been inside of it. I see that it's got a brand new distributor on it. It's got underdriven pulleys for the crank and the water pump on it. Other than that, just visibly looking at it, it looks like it is 1000% stock. But there's only one way to tell, and that's to tear it apart. Now, when I had bought this car, or when I had traded for this car, Drake had said that, oh, you know, it might have a cam in it. I'd be really surprised if it has a cam in it, but like I said, there's only one way to find out, and that's to tear this thing apart. So basically the first thing I'm going to do is I have to take off the upper intake to free up some more room in here, and then start taking electronics off, fuel rails, injectors, sensors, take the accessory drive off of it, and get it down to the bare engine. So that's what we're going to do right now. I don't really have a ton of time to work on it tonight, so it might end up being like a 2-day deal. So if you see me randomly change clothes, it's probably because a day has passed. So we're going to get into it. All right, so we've got our upper intake off, and I just wanted to point this out because I did get a couple of comments of people saying that there's this company, they make actually a plug-and-play, quote-unquote, system for Terminator X for SN95s and Fox bodies, so that you can use the factory harness. But looking at this harness, I would say that I don't want to use any part of this harness. This is all 100% dry rotted and cracked. Like it's cracking open like a crab leg. factory harness, junk. Basically just gonna throw this thing away, which is okay because I have the ability. I can just make it work with the Terminator harness, no problem. And it'll be nicer and newer, so no issues there. Now we just get to take the wiring harness off, and then we'll drain the oil, which will be interesting because I checked the oil one time so far. That's all I've done. That's the extent of knowledge that I have on this engine, is that the oil is there. So we'll keep going on it. Based on how tight the oil drain plug was, I don't even know if anybody's... I don't know what the oil change history on this thing has been. I know that it has oil. Oh yeah, that's that black gold right there.
Is it shiny?
No. I mean, we're gonna find out if there's anything in the pan once we pull it off, but oil's not looking too bad. I mean, I'm sure it was due for an oil change, but looking okay, I guess. All right, guys, so we've got our upper intake off. We've got our accessory drive bracket for this side off. Just gonna be taking this one off, but I wanted to take a quick break because me and Nate were talking earlier today, and we kind of were coming up with some different ideas for what we want to do for engine covers and intake, because I want to do something different and special maybe. So we've got our upper intake and our little beauty right here. And what me and Nate were thinking was we could do one of two things, right? We could do crinkle red on the intake and the valve covers, kind of like the Ferrari crinkle red. I'll have Nate put a picture like here. Or we could do bass boat flake. And I have a couple of different colors because I have all kinds of leftover paint and materials from when I painted Goldmember. So I have gold flake, platinum flake, I got white paint, brown paint, black paint. So there's a couple different combinations I could do with like a bass boat sparkle. Just some ideas. Let me know in the comments what you guys think we should do. Should we do the crinkle red or some kind of flake? What color flake I'm not entirely set on, but I could figure it out. Let me know what you guys think on what we should do for engine color design, because we want to do something kind of unique and cool, since the engine itself is not going to be that unique or cool. We want to make it at least look unique and cool. So back to the show. All right, so we've got our valve covers off, our water pump off, our accessory drive off. Now the intake is ready to come off. I just wanted to point out, if you can see in there, how much crap is just built up in this thing from all the 20 years that it's been in the car, running with the EGR and the smog pump and all the emissions bull crap. It's just ridiculous. There's a famous quote that says, "Nothing in this world was designed to eat its own crap, except for rabbits." Rabbits can do that because they have a digestive system thing. But it is especially true for this engine. So no more EGR, obviously. Now we are ready to pull this intake off and take a look in here. I also noticed that this has factory stamped steel rocker arms on it, which is a pretty good telltale sign that there's definitely not a camshaft in it. I guess there's really only one way to tell. Here we are, stocker than stock. Little baby intake ports. So adorable. All right, well, let's get back into tearing this thing down. We're starting to make some headway now. Oh yeah. right on our clean floor. I'll tell you guys, I really hate working on stuff that's got coolant in it. Because everything we work on here obviously is race car stuff that only has water. Coolant just makes such a mess, man. Okay, so there's not any rods kicked out of it yet. So everything is looking pretty normal. That's nice. Good stuff. Got a nice crosshatch still in the cylinder bores. So this engine has got like around 120,000 miles on it. Obviously, it's never been opened since the factory. But we're gonna look at some bearings here, and I'm willing to bet that the bearings look brand new, just like the cylinder bores look brand new. Not that it matters because we're gonna touch on it and get new bearings, but just interesting stuff that's old and beat up and probably not had too many oil changes done on it. Just from the factory, when they only make 250 horsepower, 230 horsepower, they just live for forever. It's awesome. So let's keep going on this thing. All right, survey says a little more, actually a little bit more worn than I thought it was going to be. You can see you got a little bit of wear right there in the middle of the bearing. Obviously, that's nothing to be concerned about if, you know, you're going to reuse rod bearings, which we're not.
Short little connector rod.
Look how short this thing is. It's pretty cool. It's 5 inches 90 thousandths. It's like one of the shortest. I think it's probably the shortest V8 rod I can think of. Really, 5090. It's like I don't know what stock small block Chevrolet stuff is, but so these engines, if you didn't know, came from the factory with the forged piston, which I'm gonna try to reuse. I am planning presumptively right now on getting new rods, just putting rods in it, and or maybe just doing rod bolts to replace these. Actually, you know what? I don't even know if we can do that. You have to forgive my ignorance on stock stuff, but I think that I'm just gonna have to end up putting rods in this, which is no biggie. I can do like the Scat Pro Stock rod or whatever it is, the 5090 replacement rod, and those will get me to where I need to be. So it's a pressed pin, so that pin is actually pressed in there into the rod and it floats inside the piston. But other than that, nothing really spectacular going on here. I'm trying to see the ring wear, which it looks like it's got no wear on it. Pretty good. Bearings, once again, look pretty good on this side. Nothing spectacular there. And I can see down there, and I can see the cam. And listening to that car, it sounds like a darn tractor or truck engine. It's like,
Oh, it's got a cam.
it's got
No,
a cam.
that's a misfire.
It's just got a miss. Yeah, that's it. We're getting down to the wire here for tearing this thing down. So let's go ahead and take all the rest of the pistons and rods out. We'll take our balancer off, our front cover off, timing chain gear set off, and then we can start looking at some parts and what all is going to be replaced and what all is going to stay on this engine. All right, so we've got this engine torn down to the bare block. And at this point, I feel like we should insert the scene from Fast and the Furious where Vin Diesel says, me and the mad scientist got to tear it down to the bare block.
And replace the
But
piston
anyways,
rings you
we
fried.
got it torn down. Everything's looking good. Cam bearings, yes. That's perfectly fine. So I don't have to put cam bearings in it. Nothing really notable with the main bearings. The main bearings look just like the rod bearings, basically brand new. We had to take our oil pressure sending unit out. I'll knock the oil galley plugs out and such. And then we'll start working on cleaning the mass amounts of parts that I got. As far as what this block is, I don't know. What heads they are, I don't know. What I do know is that this came out of a 1995 Mustang. Unfortunately, I'm not super well versed in stock small block Ford stuff, since everything we do here is aftermarket block racing engines. But I will show you this though. XXX, another great Vin Diesel movie. But we'll get this thing cleaned off and we'll go from there. All right, guys, now that we've got the engine completely apart and we ran all of our parts through the washer, it has still got this kind of film stuck on there. So basically what that is, that's just burnt and caked on oil. What I'm going to be doing right now though is turning this block of aluminum into a little spacer so that I can press the pins out, because this is a press fit pin, right? So this is pressing into the rod, and I need some kind of little stand that goes kind of like that the pin will pass through so that I can knock the pins out. So that's what I'm about to do right here in the old British port, and we'll go put it over there in the press here in a minute once I get this done. All right, so we've got our, I don't even know what you exactly call this, our pin driver outer tool is what we're gonna call it. Ready to go. Now I think I'm ready to go ahead and try and knock one of these pins out. So basically all this will have to do is just sit flat in here. It should locate, yeah. We got our press. All right, it's moving. Back this up, take a look at it just to make sure. Yes, it is moving. So we'll continue on with these. We got to do these ×8. So knock all these pins out, and then we can kind of start going over some stuff as far as what parts I'm going to get for this engine. Now in theory, this is supposed to just drop right out the bottom once it's fully out. Hopefully my actual driver that I have here is long enough. If not, I'm gonna have to make one. But you can get the premise of what's going on here. So we're just knocking this pin out this way with a little bit of press. All right, so now that we've got our pins pressed out of our connecting rods and our pistons detached from the rods, it's time to clean them up. Now this is exactly like the meme. I don't know if you guys have probably seen it. It's like the lab where 1,000 horsepower engines are built, and there's some dude like spraying it off with a garden hose in a gravel pit, like some pistons.
And some flip-flops.
This is exactly what we're doing right now. And you might be asking yourself also, what are you doing this out here instead of just putting them in the blast cabinet, in the parts washer? Well, that's because I'm using this oven cleaner right here. This stuff does an amazing job of removing that baked on, super hard to get off oil. So here's a perfect example of something that's got this baked on crap on there. You spray this on there like that, and check this out.
What?
Brand new.
Where'd it go?
Where did it go? So basically, yeah, I just sprayed these on the pistons, and I haven't really hit the crown of the piston yet at all. I've just been hitting the sides and whatever. Just trying to get that crap off of there. And I might even still put them in the actual sandblaster too if it really comes to that. But I think that stuff is going to just take it right off. So I'll go ahead and spray that on there and get these things cleaned up. I mean, it didn't blast it 100% off, but All right, so we've got our engine 100% disassembled and clean for the most part. There's still a couple of miscellaneous bullcrap pieces that I have to just scuff and get rid of all the crap so I can make it nice and clean. But before I let you guys go on this video, I wanted to show you some things that we're going to be going over even more of in the next video, which is upgraded parts. So here's just actually what I have that came in today. So obviously I'm going to have more parts than this, but this is just to show you guys a little sneak peek of what's going on, what parts I'm going to be using in this build. So we have got an Eagle SIR 5090, which is a stock small block 4302 rod length. I believe they call this actually the Pro Stock rod or something like that. But main differences here that we've got is this is made out of a much better material, for one. Better designed. It's got more material here on the I-beam versus the stock one. And the big difference and the big upgrade, actual ARP rod bolts. Not these. I don't even know. Are these 5/16? They've got to be 5/16. Yeah, 5/16 nuts that you torque to, like, I don't know what these torque to, probably 20 pounds. They're absolutely nothing. So had to upgrade those. So I got this, which is good, you know, affordable option to replace the stock one. Moving up top, obviously, you know, I've got valves, valve springs, retainers, keepers, which will be on the way. Those aren't here yet. But we do have rocker arms and retainers. So this is a factory stamped steel rocker arm that is used in, this is the exact same rocker arm that every single OEM engine has used from the 1950s all the way up to the 70s and 80s. Well, actually, this is a 95, so all the way into the 90s. My bad. Obviously, this thing is just super thin, not really meant for any horsepower, any RPM, any spring load, non-rollerized. Kind of just this is a stock only deal. You wouldn't ever want to run aftermarket springs with something like this. Moving on to the retainer. This is kind of interesting. A lot of people, including myself, don't really know a ton about this stock stuff like this. That's kind of old fashioned, but this is a two-piece, what do they call this? Yeah, a rotator retainer. So this actually spins and rotates in here, which lets the valve rotate. So they do this on purpose. Why they do it, I've been told, is because of leaded fuels way back in the day to prevent corrosion by letting the valve spin. What was the other reason? I can't remember. Somebody that knows more about this style of retainer can cue in the comments and let people know what the main reason is they do this. But for me and what we're doing, this is absolutely useless. This is a big, big, heavy retainer that just takes up a ton of space and a ton of weight. And here's what we're replacing it with. This teeny tiny, nice lightweight guy. So this is for the spring that I'm going to be putting in it, which is a PAC 1220 ovate beehive spring. That's a pretty typical deal that we'll use on small block Chevys, big block Chevys that we're building here, and small block Fords. So it's just a great overall spring. It's not an ad for PAC, but we do use that spring a lot. Nothing super special there, just more spring pressure for more RPM. Moving on to the rocker arm, because I didn't compare these two yet. This is an Engine Pro 1:6 ratio stud mount rocker arm. And I'll get the adjuster too, just so you have a visual. That goes on there, and then we've got studs that go through, and it goes just like so. So obviously you can see this is a much beefier unit than what this stamped steel piece is. This is actually, with the exception of this being a 3/8 center stud, my Blueberry engine, which I spend over 8,000 all the time, has this exact same rocker arm in it, stud mount. Not a 3/8, it's 7/16. So that's really the only difference between the rocker arm that I'm putting in Cherry and the one that's in Blueberry. So kind of interesting stuff. Just some small samples of the pieces that I'm going to be putting onto this engine. If you guys want to see more of how I'm going to be building this engine, what I'm going to be doing. So next week's video, we will be actually going through all the rest of the parts that I got coming that aren't here yet. And I'm going to be showing you how to put all that stuff together if we're going to build this engine and dyno it. So super excited. Next week's video will be putting the engine together. Then the week after that, I think we'll be dynoing. We'll see how everything lays out. But I'm Kyle. Thanks for watching the channel, guys, and we'll see you next time.